In the sky, a phoenix spreads its wings. Soaring toward the sun, it flies over a desolate land, where the mountain ranges have lost all signs of life. A dark and gloomy shadow covers the entire land, its shadow cast down upon the earth, right where the gigantic white skeleton of a strange reptile lies. Suddenly, the phoenix falters, letting out a cry. Then, it unwittingly plummets, headfirst to the ground. Its blue and red feathers hang suspended in the air. Following the phoenix's fall, it crashes with a loud thud, sending dust and smoke swirling in all directions. The phoenix lies motionless on the ground, seemingly dead. The earth beneath it rises up, distorted by the impact of its weight. At this moment, from within the blue and red feathers, a delicate hand suddenly emerges, carrying a trail of blood. Even more chilling, a fully grown woman, dressed seductively, rises from within the body of the phoenix. Blood splatters across the air. She tilts her head back, savoring the atmosphere, while cursing aloud. Why is there a cursed village here? Since ancient times, when the great god Pengu created the world, these beasts were all eradicated. Though this woman has a human body, she has 2 horns on her head, long ears, and red eyes like a demon. She slowly stands up. This woman is the ancient matriarch, Min Ha, who has devoted her entire life to practicing in the endless sea of blood, seeking the secrets of the grand Tao of Chinese medicine. Just as she stands upright, danger arrives. From the distance, 3 monsters suddenly appear, charging toward her: a female demon, an elephant, and a lynx. Min Ha is momentarily stunned. Watching them approach, the giant elephant leaps into the air, wanting to crush her with its powerful legs. The female demon swings her sharp claws, and the lynx, with hunger in its eyes, leaps forward. The massive elephant's foot comes crashing down, causing a tremor that shakes the earth, making the heavens and earth tremble. Blood sprays into the air like fireworks. The air is thick with the stench of blood. The lynx, with cold, piercing eyes, holds one of her arms in its mouth, blood dripping down her arm. At this moment, the female demon feels a sensation, and all the blood seems to gather, flying toward a single direction. They noticed this and immediately turned around. A large amount of blood gathered into a stream and flew toward the distant horizon. Min Ha's body was thrown far away, her arms and legs bitten off, but miraculously, the droplets of blood that had previously gathered flew back toward her, filling in the wounds. It seemed like a miraculous recovery, like Sun Wukong's magical powers. Not even a few seconds later, she stood up on the ground, her arms and legs completely restored to their original state. Before the enraged eyes of the 3 monsters, she raised 2 fingers, forming a small purple energy sphere. Then Min Ha swung her hand, creating a brilliant trail of light right in front of her. Her eyes were filled with unwavering determination. Directed at the monsters ahead, a slash of light radiated from her hand, charging toward the beasts. The dazzling light swept across, but Min Ha's body couldn't withstand the pressure and she coughed up blood. She hurriedly covered her mouth, but it was too late. Looking at her bloodied hand, her gaze darkened. It seemed that the blood sea technique had been exhausted. With one more fatal wound, it was said that even she could no longer revive by replenishing her blood. Just as the saying goes, when you mention Cao Cao, Cao Cao arrives. From the sky above, a large, 3-eyed bird swooped down, its beak wide open, aiming directly at her. Min Ha looked up just in time to see it charging toward her. Her eyes filled with panic and disbelief. The bird attacked with its maximum speed, seemingly putting all its power into this strike. Min Ha tilted her head back, gazing at the sky. Could it be that she really had to die here today? She closed her eyes, expressing her unwillingness. She still hadn't discovered the secrets of the grand Tao of Chinese medicine. She couldn't die here. Min Ha sank to the ground, her head lowered, filled with regret. The bird was getting closer and closer. She refused to accept it. If only there was someone who could help her now, she would definitely take that person as her only disciple. She would make them her closest confidant. It seemed like she felt her sincerity was lacking. She raised her head to the sky and shouted loudly. If such a person existed, she would even accept them as her adoptive father. The crow's desperate caw echoed. Her body felt no pain, and nothing unusual happened. Min Ha, stunned, widened her eyes in front of her. The gigantic crow dove headfirst into the ground, just like the phoenix had done earlier. She sat there, stunned, for a long time. Then, she regained her composure and looked up at the sky. A shadow of a giant bird appeared before her. For a moment, she was overwhelmed by its size. But as the bird descended, she immediately withdrew her admiration. It turned out that the massive creature was actually just a fat chicken. The chicken struggled to land, and on its back was a man wearing black glasses. In that moment, she suddenly felt that this chicken looked strangely familiar. The man slowly stepped down, muttering, "What's up with this broken system? I heard it was impressive, both supreme and invincible." As he spoke, he reached up to take off his glasses. Behind the glasses were two stunning blue eyes, and his hair was tied up, with a few strands hanging loosely. Giving him a charming, carefree look, he looked at the flickering map in front of him, scolding, "This damn system is useless. Not only does it lack any functional features, but it can't even give clear directions." The chicken behind him had shrunk in size, constantly patting its chest and panting. Suddenly, the man noticed Min-ha in front of him, and was stunned. The glasses in his hands fell to the ground. He thought, "Did I just bump into someone else's daughter?" Little did he know, deep inside, Min-ha was secretly smirking, her sharp teeth showing. It must have been fate that she hadn't died, so she narrowly escaped death. Min-ha slowly stood up. In her eyes, that chicken seemed like a juicy chicken leg, while the young man in front of her carried an immense amount of spiritual energy, which, for her, was truly a great tonic. Moreover, this young man looked rather unfamiliar, so it could be ruled out that he was a reincarnation, or a descendant of the great beings from the prehistoric era. The important thing right now was to absorb his spiritual energy. To restore her cultivation, he noticed she wasn't responding and looked at her, puzzled, full of question marks. As for the fact that he had just saved her, Min-ha smiled eerily. Her eyes widened, her wicked, ghostly face smirked as she thought about repayment. But of course, that wouldn't happen. What would a true demon like her have to repay for? But at this moment, he suddenly grabbed her shoulder and lifted her up, shaking her vigorously, calling out for her to wake up. Min-ha, being shaken, felt as soft as a noodle. After seeing that she still didn't say anything, he turned back and scolded his fat chicken. "Is this kid really making us uncomfortable? After all the injuries, she's still here, laughing like this?" He cried out in frustration, repeatedly saying they were doomed, and suggested whether they should run away. The fat chicken, named Xiao Wei, was startled and guilty when it heard him mention this, its body trembling. At that moment, Min-ha pretended to regain her composure. Giving him an innocent and helpless look, she called him Big Brother and told him that she was fine. Hearing this, the man finally let out a sigh of relief. "It's good if you're fine," he said. He then gently set her back on the ground and carefully asked, "How come this little one is here all alone? Where are your family members?" Min-ha lowered her head in a humble manner. Pretending to be weak, she replied that she didn't know where her family was, but fearing that he might not trust her enough, she added that she had been sleeping before, and when she woke up, she was already here. She truly hated being fake. Indeed, it was fake, and the words were terrifying. Deep down, she secretly laughed with delight, thinking that he had saved your life, and soon enough, she would drain his spiritual power, ending it all quickly, so you wouldn't have to suffer. After thinking this, she even praised herself for being a kind-hearted demon. It was so laughable. The young man, noticing her injured leg, graciously bent down and offered to carry her. Min-ha, surprised by this, politely thanked him, but secretly held back a laugh. Wasn't this the help she had been waiting for? The opportunity was too obvious. Min-ha sat on his back, her mouth wide open, with 4 sharp fangs exposed. Her face was filled with delight, ready to enjoy the fatty prey laid out before her. The meal had been served on a silver platter, and she couldn't hold back anymore. With a swift bite, she sank her fangs into his shoulder, but instead of tasting the delicious blood, a huge force surged out, and instantly, she was thrown back hundreds of meters. The energy left behind formed a long, bright red streak, powerful and fierce. Yet, the young man seemed completely unaware of what had happened. He felt his back lighten and looked back in confusion. In Min-ha's eyes, the area around him radiated a massive amount of power. She crouched on the ground in fear. Was this not primordial chaotic true chi? This sight directly terrified her, making her break into a cold sweat. Her previous arrogance was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. This primordial chaotic chi was something only the great beings from the prehistoric era possessed. Even if she were at her peak, she wasn't sure she could defeat him. Seeing him slowly step toward her, she thought to herself, I'm definitely going to die today. Minha discarded all pride and begged for mercy. As she saw him getting closer, her inner self screamed in defeat. Finally, she surrendered. Minha knelt on the ground, her ears drooping, obediently acting like a little puppy, calling him father and offering to become his daughter. The moment she uttered the words father, the atmosphere between them suddenly became eerily silent. Everyone stared at the other, as if probing the person before them. Bit by bit, the young man lowered his head and stared quietly at the girl. Not knowing what he was thinking, Tiu Hoi, sensing the awkward atmosphere, looked at Minha with a hint of annoyance, unable to hold back, and whispered to them, one of you should move a bit. Seeing the young man staring at her, Minha sat on the ground, obedient like a pet waiting for her master's command. She smiled innocently and asked, what are you looking at, father? On the surface, she lowered her eyes, acting sweet and obedient, but deep inside, she was screaming and howling. Raising her sharp claws, she had to offer an endless sea of blood, and with the refined essence of Pangu's blood, she could step into the great Tao of Zhang Yan. But right now, she was at her weakest. Even if it meant losing face, she absolutely could not fail here. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became, but she still had to maintain an innocent and helpless expression. The young man scratched his head in confusion. Clearly, he had only gone out hunting, yet suddenly, he had gained a daughter. It was strange. He rubbed his chin, thinking through the possible scenarios. Could it be that Tiu Hoi didn't notice, and accidentally knocked into this child, making her dazed? If he left the girl here now, and some monstrous beast came and took her, wouldn't the blame fall on him? Thinking this, he immediately turned and glared at his mount. It was all this fat chicken's fault. It could eat anything, but couldn't do anything right. Tiu Hoi, caught in the glare, jumped in fright. The young man gave him a resentful look. Clearly, in such an open area, how could it fall onto someone? Tiu Hoi knew he was being watched and hurriedly avoided eye contact, acting like he didn't know anything, not touching anyone or doing anything wrong. But after a moment, the young man sighed, closing his eyes and letting it go. After all, it was his mount. If it caused trouble, he, as its master, had to step in and fix it. With that, the young man bent down to look at the girl in front of him. First, he would take her with him, then perhaps her family could help her get out of this desolate land. He reached out and patted Minha's head, smiling gently as he tried to comfort her. Good girl, what's your name? Can your foster father take you home? Upon seeing the gentle smile of the young man, Minha was momentarily startled, then obediently replied, my name is Minha. My father is a general of the Artula tribe. She then suddenly stood up and happily exclaimed that she knew the way home. This abrupt change took the young man by surprise, leaving him stunned for a long while. Although Minha was a demon ancestor, at this moment she appeared no different from a real child, happily dancing and laughing. Of course, this change had its reasons and hidden motives. As long as she could lead him to the Artula tribe's territory, she swore she would bind him tightly. If she didn't skin him alive and pull out his tendons, she would never be able to repay the harm he had caused her. While she was still lost in her perfect plan, a voice suddenly echoed right beside her ear. Minha, startled, looked around, searching for the one who had used spiritual transmission to speak to her. The voice continued, saying, you've struggled to reach the Tao of Zhang Yan. Why are you thinking about leaving? Though your divine abilities are limited here, if you follow this person, living off his charity, you can still raise your cultivation level. Minha became more and more confused, constantly glancing left and right, turning her head in all directions. She eagerly asked, who is transmitting to my consciousness? The young man in Tiu Hoi looked at her with doubtful eyes, clearly puzzled by her strange behavior. He remarked, she's truly pitiful. Looks like she's been hit on the head or something. Just a moment ago, she was fine, and now she's acting like this. He quickly decided he needed to take her home. He patted her shoulder, calling her good girl, and told her to stay there while he went to get some food. They would eat and then go home. Minha snapped out of her confusion, obediently nodding at him. So, Tiu Hoi and Minha stood there like statues, watching the young man's figure disappear into the distance. Just wait, she thought. Tiu Hoi immediately spoke up behind her, squinting and looking proud. "Long time no see." Min Ha lowed to, "Great ancestor Min Ha, it's me, the Konbang." As soon as Min Ha heard that name, she immediately turned around, startled. There was an ancient poem that mentioned, in the north of Maine, there's a fish, whose name is Kon. Its wings stretch 600,000 miles. A bird of enormous size. It was said that the Konbang, a supreme creature of great power, was the ruler of the vast sky. Min Ha stared, her eyes wide, then turned to look at the fat chicken in front of her, asking in surprise, "Why are you here? What else can you transform into?" Min Ha then threw him a mocking glance. Konbang, exasperated, looked at her, lifting its tiny wings to cover its beak, and whispered, "Please lower your voice." Duan Lab didn't know its true identity, but Min Ha wasn't giving up, with one jab after another, mocking the so-called Yu Su demon master, who was supposed to be on the celestial court, but now was here, reduced to a mere earthbound chicken. Upon hearing this, Konbang clicked its tongue, its eyes distant, and began to recount. 10 years ago, I left the vast Hongwang realm, seeking to find an opportunity in the endless void. Back then, I was in the majestic and powerful form of a shark, but I accidentally violated an unknown forbidden rule, and as a result, was sent here. Konbang shook its wings in frustration, and continued, "These past few years, I've been following this young man, eating countless exotic beasts, and now, my body is full of spiritual energy, but sadly, I haven't been able to refine it with divine abilities, which is why I'm in the current form." It was at this point that Min Ha recalled what it had just said, about how following this person named Duan Lap could help her improve her cultivation. Konbang, with a determined and certain look in its eyes, continued, "Although I don't know the exact cause, my cultivation has progressed rapidly over the past 10 years. Right now, I might even be stronger than you." At this thought, he couldn't help but laugh loudly, its arrogant laughter truly irritating Min Ha. She believed that Konbang was boasting, but it was obvious how talented it was, so why was it willing to lose face and become a mount? Konbang continued explaining, "I don't know what happened, but that young man is very strange. On the surface, he appears to be just an ordinary mortal, yet he possesses the holy body of the celestial Tao and boundless power. He can capture any exotic beast, skin them, and turn them into food. Now, with no magical powers, Konbang was afraid to anger that young man. He leaned closer to Min Ha and whispered, "I suspect that this young man is a being similar to the great Banko, born from the celestial Tao, inheriting the fate of the heavens, a natural-born saint." Upon hearing this, Min Ha was startled. Both of them turned their heads at the same time, looking in the same direction, where Duan Lap was slowly walking toward them, his eyes cold and his face grim. Min Ha could almost feel the pressure he was exerting. Could it be the ancient, wise intelligence that could devour spirit as sustenance? Speaking of food, her stomach growled loudly, clearly not cooperating with her thoughts. Seeing her astonished expression, Konbang added, "Over the past 10 years, all the exotic beasts in the celestial Tao have been devoured by him." Then it advised Min Ha, "Listen to me, stay within this place. The waters are deep, and you can't grasp the full situation. It's better to follow this person." But Min Ha, of course, would not yield so easily. As a grand patriarch, she didn't believe in the so-called natural-born saints. She clenched her fists in anger, determined to find a way to stop the celestial Tao and seal away the divine powers. Her eyes became resolute. She would certainly deal with Duan Lap and avenge the humiliations she had suffered. The three of them soon began to move, with dark crows still circling above them, constantly waiting for the right moment to swoop down. They flew in flocks, darkening the sky, eager for a tasty morsel. They arrived at a rift between two mountain peaks, where there was a small crack in the air. Then, the crack slowly grew wider, and brilliant red lightning shot out from inside, creating an endless, swirling vortex. Meanwhile, on the other side of the boundary, when the crack began to stir, everyone immediately dropped to their knees, chanting, "The patriarch ahead is the greatest power, the saint of the celestial Tao." After depleting the blood essence, she was now able to see the secret of the celestial Tao. She would definitely ascend to sainthood. The Artula clan had been meticulously created by Min Ha herself, a red demon known as the heavenly beast of the 3 generations. the demon king of the demon realm, the 4 great demon kings, and the demon king of the heavenly Tao, had all granted merit equal to the achievements of Nuoa, who created humanity. Her clan had now been imprisoned in the human blood sea for a long time. Now, she had returned to this Hongwang world, and who dared to stop her clan from emerging? Everyone began bowing their heads, chanting in unison, Atula rises, the patriarch ascends to sainthood. Following the chant, a series of roars from the monstrous beasts could be heard. The crack in the gateway grew larger, and a brilliant red light poured out from it. The red demoness had a joyful, delighted expression as she saw the patriarch emerging. A large violet vortex appeared from the gateway, with thousands of lightning bolts radiating powerfully around it. The monstrous beasts fell silent, waiting for a dramatic and earth-shattering entrance. They all simultaneously lifted their heads, constantly calling out for the patriarch, their eyes filled with hope. Then, a large chicken suddenly flew out of the gateway. On its back were Duan Lap and Minha. Con Bane, as usual, tensed his muscles, bracing his rear end to support the weight of both individuals. The monstrous beasts froze in place, their eyes wide with confusion. They quickly flew into view of the monsters and their clan. When Atula Minha saw her people, she smiled. Con Bane suddenly halted midair, crying out that he couldn't take it anymore, and activated the emergency landing mode. Duan Lap seemed to be very familiar with this situation. He only noticed one thing. Why had it been bright earlier, but now it had become so gloomy? It was quite strange. At this moment, Minha suddenly gave a mysterious smile. Once the fat chicken landed, they all jumped off. Con Bane braked sharply and struggled to stand again. Duan Lap set foot on the ground, but the first thing that intrigued him was not the people in front of him, but rather his doubt. How could that fat chicken still be alive? The red demoness saw him and immediately became suspicious. She didn't know who this person was, especially since he was with the patriarch. While Con Bane was gasping for air and lying flat, Duan Lap turned to the crowd and asked, "Are they relatives of Minha?" He gently took her hand and led her away, assuring them, "Don't worry, although she has suffered a bit, there's nothing major. She's just a little frightened, that's all." Though he said this out loud, in his heart, he secretly ridiculed, "This tribe really is ugly." And indeed, they were. His words immediately caused the entire clan to be unsettled. It was the first time the red demoness heard someone call Minha a child. Just then, the sky suddenly grew dark. Dense bolts of lightning began to appear in the sky, and a massive column of energy descended from above, striking exactly where Minha was standing. She focused, feeling the powerful energy flowing through her body. Duan Lap, a bit surprised, raised his hand to shield himself and tried to observe the situation. Minha began to change, her appearance slowly altering. She was now draped in brilliant golden armor, and her once short horns grew longer and sturdier. Her entire body radiated a powerful energy, one that posed a significant threat. It was completely different from her obedient appearance just moments ago. At this moment, Minha was the patriarch of the Atula clan, a true warrior. She smiled with joy, feeling her strength return. Along with this, 2 weapons appeared by her side, the sword Atai and the original sword. Duan Lap stood from afar, still dazed and unable to process this transformation. Minha, of course, seized the opportunity. She performed an exaggerated basic sword dance, then turned her gaze towards her opponent, filled with both anger and determination. Die! Duan Lap! The sword clattered loudly to the ground. At this moment, Minha's posture was rather strange, her stance awkward, as if unsure of herself. Her adoptive father watched her with a blank, stunned expression. Minha's face turned pale, her complexion drained of color, appearing pitiful. Moments later, she collapsed, which stunned everyone, leaving them utterly speechless. The red demoness stuttered, That's the guardian spirit of the patriarch, the god's sword and Atai." Meanwhile, Con Bane stood to the side, silently observing, thinking to himself that she would never change. A few minutes ago, Minha had been preparing to do something. Duan Lap was caught off guard, as Minha was gripping the sword tightly at both ends. Her adoptive father watched her intently, the tip of the sword trembling in her grip, seeming like it could explode at any moment. Minha was dissatisfied and cried out, "How can this be? My 2 spiritual treasures have escaped my control." She refused to give up her resistance. How could this happen? Min Ha continued to torment the weapons, without any mercy. The weapons, still trembling, thought to themselves, they're too powerful, touching them would be fatal. The two treasures lay still, pretending to be dead in order to avoid further harm. At this moment, Min Ha seemed to have lost her mind. Her eyes were bloodshot and terrifying. She trembled as she looked at them, her legs nearly giving way beneath her. She was deep in thought. This strange power, if it were to destroy the Artula clan, perhaps even I wouldn't have the strength to resist it. Min Ha felt a bit worried. What should I do? She thought. I almost wanted to kill him just now. Her adoptive father's hand reached out and gently patted her head, comforting her. Min Ha still trembled, her whole body shaking. Her adoptive father softly touched her head and called, Min Ha. Duan Lap's expression remained calm. Such a mischievous girl, like a monkey. How should I teach her? Suddenly, an idea flashed through Duan Lap's mind. Monkey, yes, I should teach her like how Xuanzing taught Sun Wukong. Really smart, he said, praising himself internally. Duan Lap clasped his hands together, imitating Xuanzing, and said, Indeed, Wukong. Min Ha, how many times have I told you? Don't casually throw trash around. What if it hits someone? What then? Even if it doesn't hit anyone, it's bad if it lands on flowers, grass, or trees. His face became slightly frightening. Min Ha trembled, her eyes glancing up. The sword she had been holding was now in Duan Lap's hands. He looked at it and assessed. This sword is too dangerous. Look, it's already cracked here. Children playing with this could get hurt. Duan Lap stored the sword into his system and activated the retrieval station. Min Ha cried out, Dad, you've confiscated it. Her voice sounded a bit regretful. Her face scrunched up in frustration, and her eyes were moist, on the verge of tears. She looked pitiful. She shivered and sobbed. Yet, her adoptive father simply watched her without any special reaction. Hey, something's wrong. Conbang, seeing her cry for so long, secretly chuckled. Duan Lap, after watching her for a while, finally looked down at her and pondered. Min Ha, feeling wrong, blamed her adoptive father. Why did you take it from me? Duan Lap didn't reply. He raised his hand into the air, and a faint light appeared. A new toy for Min Ha was revealed. He handed it to her and said, Good girl, you should play with this. Min Ha didn't understand but took it naturally. She held the toy tightly, pouting. Who would want this? But even as she said that, she gripped it tightly. Min Ha examined it and recognized the object. Her face turning sly, the aura of Hong Meng's true qi emanated from it. For those who don't know, Hong Meng's true qi is the foundation of the great Tao. Great saints such as Hong Qin Dao Zhu, Santon, Nu Oa, and others attained their saintly positions only because of Hong Meng's true qi. Min Ha delightedly held it. She happily hugged the treasure tightly to her chest, her face full of joy. She was so overjoyed that she almost cried. This hall was filled with incredibly chaotic, ancient energy. It was the teacher who guided me through the origins of a tea, relying on a single thread of Hong Meng's true qi. In this hall, although the Hong Meng qi isn't perfect, there's still a chance for greatness. Like an arrow soaring, Duan Lap couldn't understand. He scratched his head. Why is she crying? Doesn't she like it? Con Bang turned around and noticed the Hong Meng qi. It had an impressive detection ability. It eagerly rushed forward, its eyes gleaming with excitement. Here's a magic treasure. It felt a bit aggrieved. I've been a mount for 15 years, yet I couldn't even get a haul. And here you are, arriving and already getting a treasure? It was frustrated. Min Ha didn't care much. She pressed its head down for trying to snatch her treasure. Con Bang tried to rush again, but Min Ha stopped it, saying, This is what my adoptive father gave me. She added, You're just a chubby chicken. Even with a shovel, it wouldn't help you. Her sharp words hit home. As they bickered, the others just watched silently. One of them finally spoke up. Lord Ba Tuan, what should we do now? Ba Tuan, looking helpless, replied, This is the first time I've seen such a situation. Ask me, I really don't know what to say. She added, logically, the treasure just now was used by the clan leader, likely to strike at the young man, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he gave the treasure back to the clan leader, and the clan leader looked way too excited. He's acting a bit crazy. Ba Tuan was puzzled. Could it be that the clan leader's adoptive father is really his father? They all wondered, how should we address the clan leader's adoptive father? Grandfather? This felt a bit awkward. Ba Tuan raised his hand to his forehead, helpless. Duan Lap stepped forward and asked Ba Tuan, could this woman be Min Ha's mother? Ba Tuan was startled by the question. Duan Lap then took the initiative to shake hands with Ba Tuan. Min Ha has mentioned her to me before. The resemblance between them is striking. Ba Tuan panicked, quickly withdrew his hand. I didn't mean that. Don't say nonsense. He rambled on. At this moment, Ba Tuan turned back, holding his head in self-reproach. Dead, the clan leader, Min Ha, has a narrow temperament, a strong sense of pride. She is the most respected existence in the Han Hoang realm. If I dared to respond to that, real mother, I would surely be tortured for many years. And after death, I would turn to ashes and vanish completely. Min Ha suddenly spoke up, asserting, she is my real mother. This statement left the two of them stunned. Duan Lap, hearing this, said, I knew it. As for Ba Tuan, his face was filled with confusion, spinning like a top from the shock. Min Ha thought for a moment, I can't be like that fool. Konbane, creating a cocoon to bind myself. I can only become a mount. She confidently believed, I will build my own image, based on my adoptive father. Duan Lap, the path to sainthood is within reach. It was a perfectly devised plan. Min Ha turned to Duan Lap and said, Father, Mother will surely be so happy to see me safely return, so let's leave her in peace. Her eyes had a menacing glint. Ba Tuan, seeing Min Ha's gaze, quickly played along, doing his best to act his part. Yes, I must have been a bit delusional. Duan Lap raised an eyebrow. What about the people behind us? The air turned eerily still. Min Ha shot a glare. Anyone who exposes our secret will have to start over. They shivered in fear, and so they all quickly said, I am the second uncle of Min Ha, Brahma. I am Min Ha's aunt. I'm Min Ha's uncle. My name is Shiva. They lied without hesitation. Truly impressive. Ba Tuan walked over to Duan Lap. Thank you for saving us. Brother Duan, Min Ha is now the bloodline of our family. From now on, you are our savior. Everyone followed Ba Tuan's lead. Yes, our great benefactor. Ba Tuan then invited, please, Brother Duan, come with us. You must stay at our house for a few days, so we can show our gratitude properly. They used magic to open a portal. Duan Lap followed, laughing. Everyone is too polite. Ha ha ha. Oh right, my mount. At that moment, he remembered his chubby chicken. Ba Tuan immediately ordered, bring Duan Win's chicken here. Outside, dozens of strange creatures were flying around, blocking their path. The group began to move. A pillar of light shot down from the sky, shocking them all. It was the heavenly emperor's beast, De Tuan. He was confused. The strange beasts had clearly sensed the aura of the demon master. And it was here, but there was not a single soul in sight. Did they leave already? Why does the old man speak so foolishly? Suddenly, something appeared. De Tuan was startled and recognized the presence. It was his own aura. At that moment, De Tuan realized, could it be that the demon master has been dragged into the underworld blood sea by Min Ha and entered the realm of the immortal world? The sky darkened, always flashing with lightning, lighting up the entire sky. The atmosphere was gloomy and foggy, shrouded in darkness everywhere. Inside the house, a grand celebration took place, a lively and noisy feast. Everyone raised their glasses, eating and drinking happily. The feast was magnificent. Duan Lap, while feeding Min Ha a piece of meat, approached and spoke. Father, Min Ha, I'm excited. After today's ceremony, I'll truly become your adopted daughter. You can't back out now. Min Ha held the glass and took a sip, secretly thinking, HMPH, right now, my blood sea is gone. I can only temporarily accept this thief and follow him for some benefits. Min Ha imagined the scene when she became a saint. At that time, she would no longer need to accept this adoptive father. When I become a saint, I'll definitely make him call me mother 100,000 times. A person as kind-hearted as me will surely make him die without pain. Just imagining it made her incredibly excited. Ba Tuan spoke up. Duan Win. Duan Lap turned when he heard his name. Ba Tuan continued, you've saved Min Ha, and thus you owe a debt of gratitude to our family. It's just a pity that we met too late. Ba Tuan shyly suggested, how about we do a double happiness ceremony today? After saying that, Ba Tuan awkwardly covered her face. Blushing, Duan Lap, seeing this, grew worried. Could it be that she's fallen for my looks? Does she want me to become her concubine? Min Ha glanced over, and Ba Tuan lowered her head, still shy, holding a cup of wine in her hand. She then proposed, "Let's swear brotherhood." Duan Lap, hearing this, finally sighed in relief. He thought she was going to force him to marry her after all. He skillfully responded, "Ah, you're too polite. If I've already accepted Min Ha as my adopted daughter, then we're family, aren't we? That's even closer than being sworn brothers." After saying this, he laughed heartily. While Duan Lap was raising his glass with Ba Tuan, Min Ha suddenly appeared from behind a chair. Peeking out to observe the situation, she came up to Ba Tuan and asked, "Ba Tuan, what do you mean by this? Why do you want to swear brotherhood with Duan Lap?" She questioned her. Ba Tuan explained, "Master, I'm trying to help him win Duan Lap's favor. Besides, he hasn't agreed to it yet." Duan Lap, sitting at the front, remained calm. Min Ha then reminded him, "Let me handle this. Tomorrow, you'll say goodbye to Duan Lap, and without my permission, you're not allowed to come back." Ba Tuan reacted immediately. "I won't leave anywhere. To make Duan Lap accept you as his adopted father, you're willing to accept me as your adoptive mother. Clearly, this person is not someone to be trifled with. I'll establish a relationship with Duan Lap now, to put you in a position where you want to beat the mouse but fear breaking the jar." Ba Tuan added, "Master, you don't need to worry about me anymore. From now on, I'll call you Master. But in front of Duan Lap, you must call me Mother." Her voice gradually became provocative. Finally, she concluded, "From now on, we'll look after ourselves and lead each other to our own devices." Min Ha was furious. She swallowed her anger and said each word through gritted teeth. "You." At the banquet table, Duan Lap was still leisurely enjoying his food. Min Ha stood silently behind the chair. Ba Tuan spoke again. "Duan Wen." She handed Duan Lap a jade pendant, saying, "In this jade pendant, there are records of tens of thousands of large and small forces in the wild world. Each force has its own name. You can take a look to understand more about the wild world." Duan Lap took the jade pendant and thanked her. "Sorry for bothering you, Lady Ba Tuan." Min Ha stood behind, sulking, thinking to herself how clever she was. Her voice became irritated as she said, "Why is my adoptive father so interested in these insignificant creatures?" Ba Tuan, acting with authority, spoke up. "Min Men, don't interrupt. Adults are talking." Everyone fell into a tense silence. Min Ha tried to suppress her growing anger, but the rage only intensified until she could no longer hold it in. She decided this time she would make a move. Using her bloodthirsty demon light from the saint level, she prepared to punish Ba Tuan. Ba Tuan, in panic, realized the danger. The bloodthirsty demon light was an unbeatable force. Just a slight touch would burn her to ashes. Her soul would vanish, and her life would be over. She cursed herself for being slow-witted, but just as it was about to strike, Duan Lap approached and lightly tapped Min Ha, stopping the force from being released. He sternly reminded her, "Watch how you speak to your mother." Both Min Ha and Ba Tuan were taken aback, realizing the situation had become problematic. Ba Tuan hurriedly explained, "This is not a fight. Duan Wen, you are being too harsh. We mother and daughter are usually like sisters. Please don't mock us." Duan Lap then advised Min Ha, "Min Ha, your mother is a great woman. She not only has to take care of you, but also manage a large family. You need to be more understanding and show respect. Stop acting like a child." Min Ha put on an innocent expression and replied, "Father is absolutely right." She decided to let Ba Tuan off this time. "Fine, I'll let you go this time. Don't forget I'm being generous." Inside, Min Ha was struggling with her inner conflict. Ba Tuan, relieved, smiled and said, No need. Duan Wen, let's just continue drinking." Suddenly, a strange streak of light appeared in the sky. It expanded slowly, seeming to tear the sky apart. The beam of light descended directly into the house. Accompanied by thunderclaps, a monstrous creature appeared. It seemed like Ba Tuan already knew who it was. It was De Tuan. Duan Lap, astonished, exclaimed, "Heavenly level has opened." Ba Tuan added, "He is the emperor of the demon race, the king of the celestial court." The name sounded magnificent. De Tuan, powerful and dignified, appeared, scanning the surroundings with a half-closed eye, looking down at everything around him. A brilliant streak of light, created by multiple lightning bolts, illuminated the dark region. Conbane, seeing the cane, was terrified and ran for his life, thinking, "The Emperor is here, we can't let him know." Conbane, worried, muttered to himself, "I'm a renowned demon master, and now I become a mount for someone else. I must run." Without further ado, Conbane fled into the shadows. Minha stood facing De Tuan, angrily scolding him. "Do you have a death wish? You dare to come onto my turf and cause trouble?" De Tuan didn't waste time with pleasantries. He directly asked, "Master of the demon clan, Conbane, has he been taken by you?" Conbane, still trembling, crouched in a corner, praying to the heavens. "Help me, old Master Minha. I'll tell you everything about Duan Lap's strange preferences. You can indulge his whims, and the great officials will grant you anything you desire." Conbane added, "At least this way is better than you blindly searching for clues." Minha hesitated for a moment, considering Conbane's proposal. She smirked and replied, "Didn't expect you, the gray-feathered chicken, to one day bow down and beg someone else." Minha responded, "What is Conbane? That thing, neither fish nor fowl. Why should I be interested?" Conbane, sensing Minha's protection for him, felt deeply hurt by her sharp words. "Why do you always have to say such painful things?" De Tuan, seemingly expecting this outcome, said, "I guessed you wouldn't easily hand over the demon master. But don't blame me." He pulled out a mysterious scroll, and when unrolled, it revealed a map. Minha's eyes lit up as she recognized it. It was the map of the world's territories. De Tuan ascended into the sky, unleashing a massive force that covered the entire sky.